DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves anyone out there, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together into one bundle, one philosophy. We wrote a book about this, a hardcover book at that. We have a daily masterclass you're listening to right now. We made a university that you can enroll in at this exact moment. It is all called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, tricks to be a confident public speaker. Now, what I'm about to give you are not actually tricks, but I called it that because somebody posted on the crowdsourcing Q&A site known as Quora. They asked this question: what are some tricks to be a more confident public speaker? So since I like that title that they gave, I'm going to use that title, at least as a working title as far as this conversation goes right here. Maybe it'll be different what you see actually in the headline from wherever you happen to be consuming this. But the disclaimer, as I just said, is these are not actual tricks. These are not hacks. These are not really shortcuts. These are things that any good public speaker would use in order to give a good presentation. And a good public speech, understand, doesn't have to be you giving some hour-long address to some audience at a business conference. It can be, listen, you could be speaking at a funeral is a public speech. So I don't think I'm really talking about funerals here. So if you're giving a sales presentation, if you're just talking to a room of people that may or may not know who you are, may or may not be bought into whatever you have to say already, what are some things that you can do that will open that audience up to you, get that audience to actually listen to you and apply and at least take home with them whatever it is you give them, and to help you be more confident in what you're actually doing, which is the actual question that was asked. How can you be a more confident public speaker? These are the things that you would do if you wanted to be more confident in your public speaking. Anyone who is a confident public speaker, you check these points that I'm going to give and tell me if you follow these and they help you feel more confident when you do speak in public. Let's get right to it. Point number one, the topic once again is tricks to be a confident public speaker. Number one thing you can do, speak about a topic that you actually know very well. Speak about something that you know. This is probably the easiest, fastest, and simplest way for you to be a more confident public speaker. Now, we just talked about back in episode 1603, not that long ago, how to get better at public speaking. Maybe just a couple, maybe 2-3 months ago, how to get better at public speaking. One of the things that I don't think we talked about then, but I want to talk about now, for you to feel confident in anything that you're talking about in life, period, is you just need to believe that you're talking about something that you actually know the subject. I mean, look on social media these days. I mean, I think in the year 2020, we got a lot of people who, I guess, position themselves. Maybe some people would say this in a kind of derisive way or in a sarcastic way. We got a lot of political experts out there. We got a lot of voting experts out there. We got a lot of medical experts. I think just on those three topics, we got a lot of social, I don't even know what we call it, social experts when it comes to how people deal with each other, data experts, people understanding how to parse information and draw a conclusion from certain pieces of data that may or may not have been the complete data. We got a lot of people who will talk about these subjects in such a way that they really knew what they were talking about, and this is what allowed them to be confident about it. Now, I'm not here to litigate whether someone was accurate or not in knowing what they were talking about on these subjects, because maybe you were one of the people partaking, and maybe you did know what you were talking about. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't know what you were talking about, but you still believe that you did. And maybe nobody has shed the light on you yet, and maybe you will never find out. But the whole point is, online, you see a lot of people feeling very confident to speak about certain subjects on which not everyone agrees on what is true and what is not, but they're so confident because they believe that they know the topic well enough to be offering an opinion. That's the point that I'm making. If you want to feel confident about anything that you say, talk about something that you know. Another benefit of this is you'll actually have some useful information to share with other people. One really, really good way, and this, I guess we can call this a hack, but it's like a quote unquote hack. It's not a real hack because it's actual. This is a good strategy, a probably very smart strategy. When you're speaking to an audience and you really want them to listen, is talk to them about something that they They know this, they understand the subject, or at least they have an idea what the subject is about, but they don't know the things that you're going to say. In other words, for example, if I was talking to an audience of basketball players who wanted to play professional basketball overseas, they want to play, but they don't really know anything about how to play basketball overseas. So I'm going to talk about that subject. They understand what it is and they know they want to do it, but they don't know, hey, here are the things that you don't know about why an agent would be interested in you and why they wouldn't. Here's some things that you don't know about what it's going to be like once you actually sign with a team and what that team is going to expect of you. Here's some things that you want to know, but you don't know about what it's going to be like in practice every day. Here's some things that you don't know about what life off the court is going to be when you're in some foreign country. You're the only American in that town, and nobody in the town, a lot of people in the town don't really speak English like that, and you have to get around and you got to go to the grocery store and buy food, and you can't even talk to anybody in English because they don't know what you're saying. Here are some things that you don't know about blank, but they're interested in that subject. That will get you a captive audience very quickly. So find some information, not find, but find an audience that wants information that they don't have, but you have on a certain subject, and you will have yourself a captive audience. Know the information, but you gotta know what the information is. And also a level above that, because at some point, maybe all the information gets out there, but there will always be people who don't have it. And then there's a way of teaching people how they can apply the information, because just having information is one thing, but being able to apply it is another. This is when you are giving the, as close to tangible as you can get, value to your audience, and they will actually listen because it's something that they haven't heard, they don't already know, but they do want to know about it. Now, again, I could talk to an audience of people about a lot of things that I've experienced and that I know about all day, but are they actually interested in it? Because if they're not interested in the subject, then it doesn't matter that I'm giving it to them. So you got to give it to an audience that actually wants it, but it has to be something that they haven't heard or they don't know or they haven't used already. The key to this is remember that to know something, you have to have done it. In other words, talk to an audience of people who have not done the things that you've done, therefore they don't know the things that you know. In other words, these are the people sitting in the chair that you used to sit in, metaphorically speaking, hey, maybe even literally, but you've done that thing with that information. So maybe they know about the information, but they haven't actually applied it the way that you have. They haven't lived it the way that you've lived it. Therefore, you have the credibility to speak to that audience and they are willing to listen. So not just you read the information or you watched it or your friend did it, but you have actually lived it. That is knowing something well. And doing that is one of the biggest keys when it comes to the actual material and the content of what you're talking about that will draw in an audience. Point number 2. Today's topic are tricks to be a confident public speaker. Number 2, have experience in whatever it is that you're talking about. Experience means you have actually done it, like I just said. One of the things about having experience, here's the benefit of having experience, is that you will have a story and you will also have credibility. Now, when you have knowledge, you've done these things, this can go with that as well, but the knowledge is people are like, all right, that's what I want to know. A lot of people will logically justify listening to somebody talk because they can logically say, all right, this person knows some things, or they're going to share some things that I don't know, or maybe they will reinforce some things that I do kind of know, but I don't always remember, I don't always think about. So this person's going to kind of drill those things back into my head. So for example, on this show, I talk discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative every day. And sometimes I attack those same points, those same subjects from different angles with different content. And you understand the whole concept of confidence. If you listen to enough episodes of this show, you get it. You understand the discipline, mental toughness. So it's not like you need to hear me say that specific thing. Hey, this is what discipline is, this is what mental toughness is. But when I attack them from different angles, it starts to get into your subconscious, and then you start actually doing things with it. Because just gathering the information is one thing. Again, using it is another. So this second point of having experience, first of all, this gives you a story. Here's the great thing about stories when you're a public speaker is stories are what make your presentation interesting, and they also make X amount of time go by a whole lot faster. So any of you ever gets tasked with giving a presentation and you're like, all right, how the hell am I going to do this? I don't know what I can talk about for 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours or 5 minutes. When I was president of Toastmasters in South Beach, Miami, around 2014, 2015, there was the first time somebody would give a speech, and their first speech they would give called the icebreaker speech. And this is when you get 4 to 6 minutes. 4 to 6 minutes to talk about anything that you want. Usually it would be someone giving just an introduction of themselves, where I'm from, what I do, how I got here, why I'm here, why am I even giving these speeches, things like that, icebreaker. And a lot of times as a president, and for a period, I was also the, what do they call it? The vice president of education. Was basically my job was just to help people move along and get more experience actually getting up in front of the room and talking. Because some people would join the club, they would come to all the events, all the meetings, but they would never actually participate. So my job was try to get people to participate. And I think I did a pretty good job of that. But sometimes people would be set to give their icebreaker speech where they get 4 to 6 minutes to talk about whatever they want. And they would be like, well, Dre, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, or I feel like I'm going to freeze up, or I feel like I'm going to forget what I was going to say. And it would be kind of interesting to me that people would say that, because I'm like, man, you got your whole life. You're 25 years old. You can talk about anything for the last 25 years, and you only get 4 to 6 minutes. That's the way that I would look at it. That's all I get is 4 to 6 minutes. Give me 40 minutes. I'll talk. I can keep talking. But many of us, again, when we don't have that experience in public speaking, that's why this is such an important topic. Telling a story, any story. Just tell a story about anything interesting that happened in your life. Just tell your life story. Tell the story of your childhood, where you grew up. That'll take you about a minute, hopefully. Let's say it takes 30 seconds. Then talk about the family that you come from. There's another 30 seconds, so you're 1 minute in. Then talk about your early life, like from the earliest time that you can remember up through your early teens, like before you got into high school. That'll be another 30 seconds, so there you go. That's a minute and a half. Then talk about your high school years up till you got into college. There's 2 minutes. Then talk about your college years if you went to college. That'll be another 30 seconds. Or talk about your early adult life if you didn't go to college. Boom, now where are we now? Was that 1, 2, 3, 4? That's 2.5 minutes. So we only got 90 seconds left. Now just talk about your adult life. That'll take you to, let's say that takes 30 seconds. That's 3 minutes. Now talk about the reasons why you came and joined this Toastmasters. You only got to give 4 to 6 minutes. So there you can talk about that for 1 minute. Talk about the most interesting thing you did in the last 30 days. If you need more time, if you've skipped through any of that too fast, boom, now we're at 5 minutes right there. So there you go. So now I just laid out the framework for what you can do for an icebreaker speech in Toastmasters. But telling a story, the whole point here, we're still on point number 2. Today's topic is tips to be a good public speaker. Telling stories helps the time go past a lot faster. When someone tells a story, if it's a good story and they're good at telling the story, you don't even notice the time going by, because our minds, the human brain, is wired to follow narrative when we talk about the story format. So if you can get good at telling stories, and then you can slip in what is the moral or the information or the knowledge that you should glean from the story that I'm telling, that's when people can really start to learn from you. So don't think that you have to just get up on the stage and just give a whole bunch of information. Any of you who's ever heard me give a public presentation, I'm not talking about online, but I mean something that I've done in person. And I know there's several of you who have heard me do that. Oftentimes I just tell story after story after story. And then when I get to the story, or while I'm in the middle of the story, the end of the story, I'll tell you, all right, here's the takeaway from the story. Now, you may not even remember much of the information to take away, but you'll remember the story, and then the story will jog your memory about the information. But the story is the thing that is easy for you to remember. Now, when I talk to people and I say, well, what part of my presentation did you like the best? And they'll usually bring up a story, and because they remember the story, then they'll remember the point. And they'll say, oh, this point. But it's really the story that helps them remember. Another thing about having experience in something, this is the second point here, is that it gives you credibility. The experience says, okay, I've actually done this. So let's just say, going back to my example of overseas basketball, if I was getting on the stage and talking about it, but I had never actually played overseas basketball, who wants to hear me talk about it? Because I have no experience. I haven't actually done it. You have no credibility in the topic. Why does somebody want to hear you talk about that? So make sure you never put yourself in that position of speaking about something with which you have no experience, because then you have no credibility and nobody really will want to hear it from you because they know you haven't done it. We remember stories, we forget data, we forget facts, we always follow narrative. So have stories that serve your facts by driving home the facts and the points. People will retain those, and that's the point of you speaking in the first place, to create some form of change. Yes, you can entertain the audience with your stories, but make sure that somewhere in that story, you're slipping in the medicine of the point, of the data, of the facts. And that will make people much more open to remembering it because their mind is already open to hearing the next part of the story. So that is the art of putting together a public presentation with story. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is tricks to be a confident public speaker. Actually care about the topic that you're talking about. I mean, this is a good trick here. And this is all tricks, quote unquote, air quotes, tricks. Care about the thing that you're talking about. This is where your passion and energy seeps through in your presentation. If you don't care, first of all, let me back up. Last time I checked, 70 to 93%, 70 to 93% of human communication is nonverbal. So some people say 85, some people say 90, so we'll just say 70 to 93. 93% is not what you say. It is not the actual words. It is not the data that you write down or any of that. It is everything else. Your passion and energy. Remember that any of you knows anything about sales, you know that sales is a transfer of emotion, is a transfer of energy. You want to sell something to somebody, you have to get them to feel how you feel, not to agree with everything that you say, but feel how you feel. When you actually care about your subject, your energy, your passion, your emotion for the subject will grab the attention of your audience, and at least some of the people in that audience are going to feel the same way that you feel about the subject, not necessarily because you have such great information. Your information might not even be that great. They might not even like you that much. But the fact that you have the energy and the passion that connects with other people, that's what's going to make them, first of all, listen to you, and second of all, remember the things that you said. People buy into how they feel about something much more than they buy into the information about anything. As, again, any of you who has done any studying or knows anything about the sales world understands, people say this all the time. We decide on emotion and we justify with logic. And all humans do this on all levels, not just when we're buying things. When you make friends, you decide on a friend based on their energy, based on their nonverbal communications, and then you come up with logical justifications for why they're your friend. Or they're a nice person and they have a good career and they make good money and they are friends with this person over here and they live in this neighborhood and they got good connections and I can make good contacts through them. You come up with all these logical justifications, but the real reason that you decide to be their friend or to date him or her is because the emotional connection, the energetic connection that you probably couldn't explain in words. That's why most of our communication is nonverbal. So when you care enough about your subject, other people will care, even if they didn't care before you came along. Your energy sells them on paying attention. Point number 4. Today's topic, once again, is tricks to be a confident public speaker. Dress well. Yes, dress well. As the way that you present yourself, again, is also part of your nonverbal communication. It's not something that you say. It's the way that you present yourself to the room. When you walk into a room or when people see you, we all, every single one of us is a judgmental individual. We make a snap judgment about a person based on how they are dressed. If you see me in the streets on a day-to-day basis, you're going to make a snap judgment. Or this person is probably an athlete of some form, or they probably go to the gym often. Why? Because of the way that I present myself. I wear athletic gear damn near every day. Anytime that you see me, I got athletic gear on. That's the way that I present myself. And the way that I dress is going to cause you to have a certain judgment of me. So then when I tell you about what I do, it might throw you for a loop a little bit. You're like, oh, wow, that's interesting. But the whole point is when you're on a stage giving a public presentation, and especially in the business world here, this dressing well part is very important. In the business world, dressing well is really important because you got to think about it. If you're giving a speech talking about business, business is the exchange of resources between people, and that resource usually is referring to money. So if you're going to stand on the stage talking about anything that involves money in any way, shape, or form, or to an audience of people who care about money a lot in any way, shape, or form, or they're at work, they're at this conference because they're trying to learn things that will help them make more money, even if your subject isn't specifically about money, you better look like, you know what, you better look like either you have some money or you know what to do with it if you did have it. All right, that's what you need to look like. So for example, when I go to a conference and I give a speech, my presentations are not specifically about money. I give a presentation called Work on Your Game, using the pro athlete mindset to dominate your game in business, sports, and life, or something along those lines. But I'm at a business conference. So I had to understand that even though my presentation is really about discipline, confidence, mental toughness, initiative, mental conditioning, those are the things that I talk about in my presentations. None of those have anything specifically to do with money, but I have to understand that the audience that I'm talking to, those people are there because they are believing something that they hear from one of these speakers, including myself, is going to help them do better at the thing that they do to generate money. Do you understand? So that money matters in some way. And also, I'm talking about being a pro athlete. And people hear pro athlete, most people have some association that, all right, pro athletes are well paid, right? So they're expecting that this guy at least has some semblance of knowing what he's talking about and should look like he's knowing what he's talking about. So that is a very important thing when you're giving a presentation, especially to any type of audience that has anything to do with money. And on top of that, if you're giving a presentation to a business audience, they probably paid you to give that presentation. And if they didn't pay you, the people in the audience are maybe thinking that they paid you and they're expecting you to be good even if they didn't pay you. I've done plenty of presentations to business audiences where I did not get paid, where I was building up my resume. But at the same time, I still needed to look like, I'm not talking about my speech presentation, but my physical presentation, I needed to look like I knew something about business. And if you don't look like you know anything, let me back up. Looking like you know something about business means you need to dress well. And here's what Anna told me when I was giving one of my first presentations. She says you need to outdress your audience. You should be the best dressed person in the room if you're in front of the room on a stage, or at least be tied for the best dressed person in the room. Why does this matter? Why does dressing well, what does that have to do with being a good public speaker? I mean, if you just have good information, isn't that good enough? No. I used to think that too, but it's not. When you know that you look good, first of all, you will feel good. And when you feel good, you perform good. That's one part of it. And this is all part of the nonverbal communication. But at the same time, as I just explained, how you dress and how you present yourself says a lot about who you are as a person, and it says a lot about how you wish to be perceived. So you must pay attention to this, even if you're a person who's not a fashion plate, you're not really into fashion like that. I personally am not into fashion. I don't really care about fashion. I don't really, honestly, when I'm coming across another person, I don't really notice what kind of clothes they have on. When somebody drives by in a car, I notice a little bit more now, but for the most part, I don't really notice what kind of car people are driving. I don't pay attention to that kind of stuff, but many people do. And if you're presenting yourself in any way as someone who can help other people make money, and you're going to an event where everybody's coming for that specific purpose, then you better look like you know what you're talking about. So even if you're not into fashion, understand something. This is part of the hustle. All right, so if you don't have any other reason to follow what I'm just telling you here, this is all part of the hustle. Episode number 1314. The topic was hustle, learning to play the game. If you are going to give a public presentation, again, I will emphasize, especially in any shape or form of business audience, they are evaluating you non-verbally way before you even open your mouth. All right, they made a big judgment about you. I would say 70 to 93% of their judgment about you has been made before you even start talking. Why? Just based on the way that you look. Based on the way that you dress. They're looking at your shoes, they're looking at your belt, they're looking at your dress, looking at your hair, they're looking at your facial expression, your energy. Does this person seem confident? Does this person seem like they know what they're talking about? That all of these things are being judged in the heads of the consumers before you have opened your mouth. And when you're the person who's the consumer, you are doing the same thing to other people. You do this to other people every single day. And other people are doing it to you. So even if you're not into fashion, like I'm not, you better get into fashion or go connect with somebody who is into fashion and let them advise you on how you need to put yourself together. So when you get in front of that room, you have at least bought yourself 70% of their respect before you even start talking. And that right there can be enough for them to listen to what you have to say just because they bought into the way you presented yourself. This is all part of the hustle. Again, you might not think this is fair. You might say, well, shouldn't we just judge people on the content of their material? Yes, we should, but like Martin Luther King dreamed years ago, or that dream is still going because it has not become reality yet. So between now and then, you better play the game. Point number 5. Today's topic, once again, is tricks to be a more confident public speaker. Prepare, prepare, prepare. Now, this could have been the first point, but I wanted to get all the other elements out of the way before we got to this one. Preparing. The less you have to worry about regarding what you are actually going to say, the more energy you will have to give to your audience. This is why you prepare ahead of time. When I am giving a public presentation, I know exactly what I'm going to say. I've already rehearsed my presentation. Even if I'm giving a presentation that I have given many times before, I always rehearse my presentation at least one time the whole way through before I give it again. Even if I've done it 10 times already, even if I've done it 30 times already, I still rehearse it at least once more before I give it again. That's part of the preparation. And that preparation is the separation, as I talked about in, I'll tell you what episode that was, where we actually talked about that exact topic. Episode number 426, preparation is what separates the pros from the amateurs. Episode number 273, preparation and opportunity, the hawk mentality. And episode number 1355, the preparation is the separation. The work that you do to prepare yourself separates you from your competitors who didn't do that exact same work because they got lazy, because they've done it many times before. That's when you start to get rusty. But when you're fully prepared, you don't have to worry about what you're actually going to say. So now you have mental space with which you can deal with the other variables in the situation, such as who's going to be in the room. Maybe it's somebody sitting in the front row distracting you. Maybe it's somebody who keeps moving around, sitting in the back. Maybe there's a person in the front who's laughing at everything that you say. Maybe you tell a joke that was supposed to get a little chuckle, but people go crazy over it, and it would have thrown you off a little bit if you weren't so fully prepared. Maybe anything can happen. You know, somebody's phone might ring. Somebody might jump up in the middle of your speech and start yelling at you. You have no idea what's going to happen in a presentation when you're in front of an audience of people. You have no control over any of those people. When you're fully prepared in what you're going to say, then that's one less thing you need to concern yourself with while you deal with all of these variables called humans. All right, so make sure you are fully prepared. Know your material. All right, the last thing you want to be standing in front of a room of people when you have been presented as an expert is not quite sure what your material is, or you forget what you were going to say. It looks very unprofessional. And as far as the unconscious communication, you have just blown a huge opportunity. Point number 6. Today's topic is tricks to be a more confident public speaker. Going right along with what I just said. Know your audience. Know who you're talking to. This will help you possibly drop what I like to call just the little accents. The little notes and anecdotes that are relevant to the people in the room. In other words, if I'm giving a presentation to a room full of business people, let's say business people from all different places. I go to some type of just a business conference where anyone from the outside world can buy a ticket and come to this conference. Maybe they have certain things in common, but they're not all from the same company. Then there's certain little anecdotes that I can drop into that audience. But let's say there's a marketing conference. So I can drop some little anecdote about the marketing industry in that presentation because I know everybody there is at a marketing conference. If I speak at a conference where everyone's from the same company, this is something else that I've done. I know everyone's from the same company. That means they all know the same bosses. They all know the CEO. They all know the director. They all know certain people in the company. I could say something about a specific person because everybody knows that person because they all work for that company. Whereas at the marketing conference, I can't do that because everyone's from a different company. Or if I'm speaking to an audience of basketball players, I can make some much deeper sports references to athletes than I would make to some people in the marketing industry. I can talk about sports to the marketing industry, but I have to keep it very high level because many of them won't know what the hell I'm talking about. When I talk about basketball players, I can go deep. I can say things about contracts, about practices, about coaches, about players asking to help you get on, help me get an agent. And the players know exactly what I'm talking about, whereas a business audience of people will have no idea what I'm talking about. So those are little accents, and understand that those 3 audiences that I'm giving you as examples, I can be giving the exact same presentation to all 3. But those little anecdotes, those little accents that I add in are based on me knowing who my audience is. So this is why you got to know who you're talking to, and it will help you drop things in so that they know that you know exactly who they are. And they will know that you've actually done the preparatory work to be ready to give them the presentation that you're giving. You're not just getting up there and just giving this rote boilerplate presentation that you give to everybody just because you've done it so many times. Even if that is what you're doing, you don't want your audience to feel like that's what you're doing. Nobody wants to feel like they're just another number. Nobody wants to feel like that. Even if they are just another number, they don't want to feel like it. So make sure you've done the preparatory work to know who your audience is, know what they care about, know their current issues, know their current needs, know their current challenges. Now, the question is, Dre, how the hell would I know these things? Here's how. Whenever I give a presentation, I've never given a presentation without knowing ahead of time that I was going to be giving one. I don't think I've ever I've just walked outside and somebody's like, Dre, give a presentation to these 100 people. That never happened. I always know that I'm giving the presentation before I do it. Therefore, I speak to the organizer before I give a presentation. And this could be standing outside the room before I start speaking. It could be 6 months ahead of time when they book the keynote, whatever it is. But I always speak to the organizer and I ask them, hey, what's the current climate of your audience right now? What are they dealing with right now? What are the changes going on in the industry that I need to know about? What are the biggest challenges that they're dealing with? Why are they even coming to this event? Are they coming because they want to, or are they coming because they have to? And I'll ask the organizer, when I'm done, when I step off the stage, what change do you want me to have evoked in your audience? How do you want the people in your audience to feel as a result of me having spoken for 20 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is? What do you want to be different about them when they go back to work? I ask all these questions. This is all part of the preparatory work of me knowing my audience. So then when I give my presentation, I can factor in all this information that I have. Even if I'm giving the exact same presentation I gave to somebody else 2 weeks ago. I can, again, it's the little things, it's the little changes that I can make, the little anecdotes that I can drop that will allow the audience to know that I did my prep work, know that I did my homework, know that I know who they are, and now I know that they know that I know who they are. And that matters a whole lot to whether they're actually listening or not. Again, 93% of communication is the nonverbal stuff. It's not what I actually say. It's the fact that they know that I did my homework to know that I'm actually talking to them and not just giving the same shit to the same people that I gave 30 days ago. I will also, another thing I'll do if I have a chance is try to speak to someone who's actually going to be in the audience. So I can speak to the organizer, the person who hired me and booked me, but also say, hey, let me speak to somebody who's going to be in the audience. Let me speak to one of your employees who's going to be there. And I'll ask similar questions and I'll see what kind of answers they give. And it might not be the same because what the boss thinks the people need may not be the same as what the people think the people need. Has any of you ever been in that position? Of course you have. So this is what allows your material to hit home is when you have actually spoken to the people. I mean, anyone who is in Work on Your Game University. I mean, one of the things that we did before we put that university out is we got on live calls, right on Zoom, one-on-one with people, and we talked to them. What are your challenges? What are your needs? What do you get from us that you don't get anywhere else? What can we help with? What specifically do you need? So then when it was time for us to put it out, we knew we were speaking directly to specific people. And I don't mean a specific person as an individual, but specific as far as the needs, as far as the angle, as far as where you're at right now in your business, in your career, in your life. That little touch can make a huge difference. Let's recap today's class, which is tricks to be a more confident public speaker. Again, this is a question that I was asked on, well, not I was asked, but a question that was posted on Quora, and I answered it there, and I'm answering it here for you now. None of these are actual tricks. Anybody can do these. These are not hacks. These are things that anybody could and should do if you want to be better at public speaking. Number one, speak about a topic that you know well because you will have more useful information. Knowing means you have done something, not just read it. Number two, have experience in what you are doing, which means you will have stories to tell and it will also lend you credibility. When you have stories, that means you've actually done it. That gives you credibility in the eyes of your audience, even if they can't articulate it. Number three, talk about something you actually care about. This is the passion and energy that non-verbally comes through in your presentation, and this is what gets people to pay attention to you. Emotions sell, stories tell. So use your emotion, your energy to communicate as you're speaking. That's what will get people to pay attention to you. Number four, dress well. In other words, be the best dressed person in the room, because when you look good, you feel good, you perform good. This is part of your nonverbal communication, how you present yourself. People will be judging you from the moment that they see you, and if they judge you as a person who is not presenting yourself well in their eyes, this is a very subjective topic, then they're not listening to anything that you have to say. So if you don't know what it means to outdress your audience, go find somebody who does know what that means and let them dress you, or let them prepare your wardrobe. Number five, prepare. The less you have to worry about regarding what you're actually going to say, the more energy you will have to give to your audience. So you're not self-conscious and focused inward. You are outwardly conscious, bold, confident, and focusing outward. Know your material. Number six, know your audience. This will help you drop little notes and anecdotes and accents that are relevant to the people in the room. And these small touches go a long way non-verbally. Know what they care about, know their needs, know their challenges. Speak to somebody in the audience. Speak to the organizers. Know exactly who that audience is before you talk. Even if your presentation has not changed that much, that little 2% difference in making sure that it's tailored to that audience can make all the difference in whether or not those people in that audience actually believe that you came there for them, or you just came there for the check, or you just came there for the experience, and whether or not they actually retain anything that you said. And the whole purpose of you giving a public presentation is for people to actually think something or do something different in the long run, not just to clap for you and say, oh, that was cool, and then forget about you 2 minutes later. You want to get better at your public speaking skills. You should actually take the people score, not actually, but you should definitely take the people skills course, which is available exclusively in Work on Your Game University at the season level and up. Get out more information at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all day.